Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in. I have the illustrious and wonderful Harper Kincaid here today. I'm super excited to chat with you. We are going to be talking about basically whatever we want.
That's right.
Um,
That's how we
Most
do.
importantly, your fabulous upcoming book. So obviously, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then
Okay,
wherever the rest of the conversation takes us, that's where we'll go.
that sounds good. Well, that's how it went
Awesome.
last time.
Yeah,
We had just
yeah,
met, and I think we spoke for over an hour. It was
yeah.
really
But it was
and
amazing.
it was amazing, and it was so amazing that, of course, I stalk you on all of your social media, and I'm
Oh,
like then, COVID hit, and then I think, wait, you had a baby in the meantime,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like you had a lot it's been a lot going on since the last time I've
I
seen you.
feel like that's like the theme of everybody, whether it is COVID or it's life. There's just a lot. So
It's
I'm
true.
glad that we're finally having a chance to connect. And I mean, speaking of a lot, you wrote another freaking book. So
But in
that's
fairness
amazing.
Thank you. But in fairness, like this book, and I'm sharing this just to sort of normalize, being a procrastinator, but it was supposed to be due sort of within the first few months of COVID. And
Okay.
I had it all mapped out, like I knew what I was
Hmm.
doing. And or was it like maybe within the first year of COVID. And
Hmm.
COVID hit and I lost all cognition. Like I
Yeah.
really and I started a new job. Like I went back into psychotherapy, like not
Hmm.
as a client, although I've done that too, but like as a therapist, like I've been away from the field for a long time
Right.
and I got the job like February of 2020 and then March everything shut down.
Right. Right.
So, everyone was in panic mode, everything was telehealth, and, it just took everything in me just to do, life, right?
Hmm.
And
Survive. Yeah.
to survive and to help other people, and these poor parents were calling me with their little ones, like, "We're trying to do virtual school," and I'm like, "This is
Hmm.
a version of hell that no one should
Hmm.
have." Like, it was just
Hmm.
awful. And so the idea of writing, my campy little cozy mystery, I just couldn't get to that place, and
Yeah.
thank God my publisher was so amazing.
Yeah.
"Hey, you just do you and don't worry about
Hmm.
it." So what, like
Yeah.
2 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that people still remember, because
Yeah.
it's sort of one after the other. So I'm just thrilled.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think, I don't want to, we're never going to go back to normal or how things were. This is like the new normal, I would call it. But I would say, yes, it's been a few years. And I think now that people have kind of slowly started dragging themselves out of the like main just hell that was the pandemic, people are ready to dive back into their hobbies and look into the things that make them feel good beforehand. And it's
Right.
interesting because you mentioned, and I totally relate about once it hit, you just were focusing on survival. And I
Yeah.
was the same way. I mean, obviously I didn't write a book, but in terms of like not only just a reading slump,
You have
but
young
just,
kids. Whatever
well,
my kids are out of the house. I am in a very different place. I was not
yeah,
writing books when I had young kids. But I
yeah,
think that's important to say, like, that you're in a different stage of life. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
I could have
yeah.
done it
So,
earlier.
well, so I had a COVID baby. And so yeah, that whole thing
That took
just
over.
it's a different, right. It's a different experience. But I say all that to say I think people are finally, myself included, kind of ready to take back their passions and their hobbies with a zeal. So this is actually, I would say, coming around at the perfect time,
There you go.
with everybody being excited and diving back into things. So let's, if you don't mind, give a quick recap of your first book, To Kill a Mockingjay, which I
Yeah.
love and still remember. So I'll
Good.
let you take over though before
That
I kind
is
of
a great
dive
sign
in.
because I don't I had to go back and
Oh
and
yeah.
and read my first book. How embarrassing
Mhm.
is that? But there are certain details that I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, who was this and who was that?" So To Kill a Mockingjay was a total, murder mystery caper revenge fantasy where the mean girl in town, gets unceremoniously killed,
Yeah.
and because the mean girl was engaged to, my heroine, Quinn Kane's ex-boyfriend, and she's also the one who found the body, everyone was like, "Oh, there's maybe some sort of weird love triangle," and, of course, my girl's like, "Ew," like, "No,"
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
so she wants to solve the case to clear her name, and also
Yep.
because, even though you know, uh, Trisha or, you know, Trina, Pemberley, those are the twins. Trisha was the one who was killed.
Hmm.
Even though she was the mean girl, I don't know how, like when you've grown up with someone in your town, like you may not like someone at all. You may not can't
Hmm.
stand them. Someone
Hmm.
from the outside or something comes in, and then
Yeah.
it's like, these are my people, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So that's how Quinn took it.
Yeah.
And so that was the first book. And I won't say, obviously, I won't spoil it for people because it's actually just came out in paperback, which Crooked Lane has never done paperbacks before. They've always just been hardcovers.
Oh,
Now we're
okay.
doing paperbacks, which I am thrilled because it brings
Yeah.
down the price and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
accessible. And so now we have a Midsummer Night's Scheme. So now, you know, Quinn has had that, you know, she has recovered from, you know, she found the killer from the last one. I won't say anything about that. She had an injury. She's all recovered. She has a new boyfriend, you know, which is a little bit of
Hmm.
a spoiler for the first one, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And now this is, I keep having revenge fantasies. Like, I'm like this half good Jewish Christian girl, but like I'm letting out the devil in
Oh,
myself,
yeah.
you know? So,
Yep. Yep.
and so the second one is the former Lothario, you know,
Hmm.
F-boy player of the
Hmm.
town, which there are many, of course, always in the town.
Of course, every town's got them.
Yes, but he's like the local one who made good. He's a Broadway star. He comes back and he wants to like reestablish his roots, and he gets killed. So at first Quinn and Sister Daria, who's her cousin and like best
Hmm.
friend, they're like, yeah, we're not getting involved with this. This is terrible, but what have you. But then the killer starts to target Quinn's older brother, Sebastian, who we call Bash.
Hmm.
He's now engaged. He's been reformed, but he had his player era. And whoever, this is a serial killer who's like going after all the players. And
Hmm.
so, yeah. So Harper has some issues anyway, but I just,
No, no, we love to read about it. And that, yeah, I was super excited to hear this one come out. Um, Especially because, and I got to be honest, it was less about, yes, the premise sounds amazing and interesting,
oh, good.
but I was excited to meet back up with the gang, basically.
Right.
Like, I loved Quinn and Sister Daria's relationship, and
Oh, good.
I remember I was going to say harping on it, pun intended, but
Yeah.
when we've talked the first time, loving Sister Daria. And it's for a variety of reasons. And I'm sure because I think I reached out to you once or twice, or
Yeah.
whenever I've mentioned your book in past
You're
videos,
so generous
I've
with that. Thank
talked about Sister Daria and how much I love her because I think. For sure, one of the things that I think we can all agree upon, people who love cozies love quirky side characters or
That's right.
side characters that have their own zest, and she hits the nail on the head.
He's much
um
more exciting than
yeah.
Quinn. Let's be honest. And
I
so,
wasn't gonna say that, but
oh, but
yes, for
let's say it
background.
because I'm getting a little bored of Quinn, and I'm like, okay, girl, you're gonna have to step it up like with for book three if there is a book three, right? But like, yeah. So because of my love for Sister Daria and
Hmm.
other people's love for her,
Hmm.
and because I am a former romance writer, I actually
Hmm.
decided for this book that every other chapter was going to switch the point of view. So, like, the
Yes.
first, you know, so then first you have
Yeah.
Quinn, then you have Daria. And
Yeah.
it's going in real time and it's the same stuff, but just from different angles. And that way you could get more of her.
That
And
is
yeah,
fast. I love that. And you told me about it, or maybe I read it. I don't
I
remember,
probably
but
told you, but who knows?
I found out, and I'm like, that is a level of genius that is
Oh,
just like amazing because I've yet to read a cozy that features dual perspective. Obviously, again, in the romance genre, you
that's
get a lot of that
it's
dual
what you do.
POV. Yeah, exactly. So I'm accustomed to that in that genre, but to bring that to a cozy, along with one of readers' beloved side
That's
characters,
right.
like
To make
I,
her she's now a main protagonist just
yes,
like Quinn is. And
yeah,
so I'm gonna be honest. So like I am deciding for like I already know what the murder mystery is going to be for book three, but
okay,
I am trying to decide. There's a part of me that's like, okay, do I just somehow change things up for Quinn and make her more interesting and still keep the dual thing? Or
hmm,
do I have sort of Quinn go off into the sunset and just have it be Sister Daria? And I'm still deciding, you know?
wow,
And I know that's not usually done, but
But if that's where the story's taking
You
you,
know, listen, In a Different World was supposed to be for Lisa Bonet, but Jasmine Guy took over. She was just the more like she was supposed to just be the side
yeah,
character, and then the
yeah,
show became about her. So
yeah,
sometimes you
yeah,
just have to go along with and it's also kind of also what they tell you, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So
I've
I'm
always been fascinated by that and maybe I don't even know if you could put into words, but when you're writing something, obviously you are in control of the story. You map it out, you have kind of milestones and checkpoints that you want to
right.
take the story or where you want the characters to go. But how is it writing it within that process to where it almost feels as if it goes a completely different direction
Totally.
than you are trying to take it?
It's a really great question, and it's a wonderful one for people who want to write,
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes it's just good if you're curious, if you're a fan.
Mhm.
But for me, I'll just say this. Yes, especially for a murder mystery, you have to have it thought out in terms of who, what, and where, and some of the
Mhm.
red herrings. But then after that, I don't like map out what they're going to say. I just know where I'm supposed to go with each thing. And so uh, I found, especially with book two, that first of all, Sister Daria had more of the story arc that I was really interested in. She's deeply flawed. She's
Yeah.
messy. She's
Mhm.
got a big mouth. I don't know. I could relate a little bit, and she reminds me, frankly, of me at that time, like, although maybe
Mhm.
younger. And these characters are a little bit on the more, it's funny. I've had people say, well, it feels like it's more of a young adult. And I'm like, that's fair because they're in their 20s, but because of their own sort of sheltered upbringings, as much as they like
Mhm.
to think of themselves as badasses for
Mhm.
whatever,
Mhm.
they are a little immature, and for Daria, she just I would fall in love with the idea of something. Then I would
Mhm.
plunge headlong into it. And then like a year later, I would pick up, say, oh wait, I don't like doing public relations, or I don't like doing this,
Yeah.
or this is not the kind of guy that I want to be with,
Right.
whatever it was. I would
Yeah.
fall in love with the idea of something versus what something was.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's what she's done. And
Mhm.
she's done it to the point where she's gone against some of her own values, and that is where um, I think people who are in crisis or people who are
Mhm.
lonely, and this is not any shame at all. It's in fact the opposite. It's understanding the humanness of those frailties, and
Mhm.
that maybe you're going to become a nun and maybe not the most affirming of church, even though you thought you were an ally.
Mhm.
That's the real,
Mhm.
so that sort of cognitive dissonance that she's going through is something that she hasn't, she's just trying to sweep under the rug because she wants to have things settled. She wants to be
Yeah.
safe. She wants to have,
Yeah.
and we've all done that. We've
Yep.
all, messed up in that way. And so part of her journey in the second book, obviously they want to find the killer before they come after Bash because,
Mhm.
you know, this person is obviously on a mission. Um, but Daria's trying to figure out her stuff.
Yeah.
Is this really what I'm going to do? I'm supposed to take my final vow in a year or whatever
Right.
it is. So
Right.
I had to put lots of, I had to I had to put cute boys in her path and people like
Really
great,
challenge her.
right? I had to really challenge her. And Quinn is in this place where honestly she thought that this is everything I wanted. And as we're going through the book, that first of all, I think sometimes you sort of again, like she's been wanting Aiden for so long. This has been, and now it's
Yeah.
happening. And so, like the first part of the book, she's just sort of pinching herself, like she can't believe
Mhm.
this happened. And then it's going to settle into, okay, now this is my person and this is my job. And it's kind of the same thing, and by
Mhm.
the end of the book, there's going to be a shakeup for that. And so,
Mm.
and nothing that's like, I mean, the mystery is solved. It's
Right.
just the things in their personal lives are going to be
Yeah.
completely thrown off.
Yeah.
And it's going to, so again, I have to decide, am I going to really make her, I guess, is she going to keep going the way she's going or is she going to challenge herself? And
Okay.
Jane's really going to be for both of them for totally different reasons.
Yeah.
So for Quinn, it's going to be a little bit more career wise.
Mhm.
There's after a while, she's going to be like, I love the store, but it's really my parents' store,
Yeah, that's true.
and I'm fixing books and I'm making leather journals and I'm sort of having this crafty good time, but like, is this really what my life is going to be? You know,
Hmm.
you don't see this in most this. I'm giving sort of a preview for book.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already chomping at the
Well,
the bit
good.
about
And so in
it.
book 2 is both of them getting confronted. First of all, they're trying to find the killer. It's because it's Midsummer Night's Scheme, everything has a Shakespearean theme.
Yes, I
So,
love that.
but, and to top it off, after I wrote the book, Spencer, I like I had the wonderful opportunity of going to England with my family, with my grown girls. And
Uh-huh.
so everything was sort of like shake. And I was like, I wish I had gotten all this stuff before,
Oh,
like,
right?
but it was great. Everything
Oh,
that
that's
became awesome.
awesome.
And it was terrific. And so, true to sort of of a Shakespearean theme, there are these three main suspects, like the three
Mhm.
witches from Macbeth.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
sort of that same sort of feel to it, and of which one of them is it going to be,
Oh.
So that's where that sort of fun comes from and what have
Yeah.
you. And obviously there's just other sort of, theatrical themes through the book. We throw in, we give the dog, Rough Barker Ginsburg, gets a kitty,
Love it.
right? She basically adopts a baby, and she adopts this cat. It was actually Chad Frivoli, the guy who gets killed.
Uh-huh.
He has this beautiful Burmese cat who's like, left in the house, and
Mhm.
the police are there, and Quinn shows up with RBG, and they sort of coax her out of whatever her little hiding
Uh-huh,
place,
uh-huh.
and they basically claim each other. And I think you can tell I've been watching too many of those, unlikely pet,
Oh, the
friends.
duos, the best friends, love those videos.
Can't help it. I love
Yeah,
to
because
see.
RBG is huge, and I imagine this tiny little cat just
That's
curled
it.
up
Who's the boss?
beside her.
Who's the
Yeah,
boss? Cindy
right,
Crawford. She's the
right.
boss. Yeah.
Cindy
Yeah. Which I hear is
Crawford.
on Ted Lasso, which I was like, I thought of this before that, but that's okay. We could share the name. It's
Yeah, it's
fabulous.
fine. You know in your heart that you claimed
It's all good.
rights on it first. We all know, all the viewers know, but I
Yeah.
love that name. I'm a sucker for a good pun, and you
I
know how
can't
much I
help it.
loved
I'm funny.
RBG. Yeah.
This is our world. We are annoying to everyone else but ourselves.
I mean, I don't know how people don't appreciate a good pun when
Thank you.
it's just such a good play on words, you know?
It's fun. It's fun, and
Yeah.
it adds a little mirth to the day.
Yes, yes, it does. You
Right?
know, it's really interesting. Excuse me, you were talking about kind of the interpersonal relationships and really just the personal lives of the characters and which way they're going to go. And honestly, to me, that's what really wanted me to read the second book or eager for the second book after reading the first one because I
Good.
know that Quinn and Sister Dyer were kind of I know they had butted heads because they were
Yeah.
friends for so long, and I
Yeah.
mean, family, obviously, but like
Yeah.
sisters essentially for
They
so
really are.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so Sister Daria's decision to go down this path really affected them both. And
Yes.
so part of me is obviously relieved to see them, the duo, back together,
Oh,
but
yeah.
knowing I don't want to say impending because that sounds pretty ominous, but knowing that their journey isn't over basically for trying to sort things out, I'm
Absolutely.
super eager because again sister I mean one of the great things about the first book was how much it delved into beyond the mystery, and it seems like the second book is doing the same thing, and
Does
that's
the same
what
thing.
I feel really has got people, like I am
Oh,
invested
good.
to know what
Well, it's
Quinn's
funny
gonna do.
because I've gotten sort of a mixed response, and I mean, I don't care because I'm doing it this way anyway, because that's what makes it interesting for me.
Right.
But I have some who are like, "Oh my goodness, I love all sort of the side
Mhm,
characters and
mhm.
all it's family drama,
Yeah.
it's other sorts of angst that are coming in. I mean, not too angsty, don't worry, it's
Right,
still
right, right.
but I've also had some saying, I just really want to focus on the mystery. I don't want all this family drama. And you know what? That's fine. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I am then not the flavor for you
yeah.
because, I wanted to, my favorite cozies are the ones that, just like you said, like You are invited into the village or the town or whatever. You've
Yes.
got your cast of characters. It's like a second family to you, and you kind of want
Hmm.
to know what's going on with them because you haven't seen them before.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Those
it.
are
I
my
love,
favorite too.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of like running through the catalog, and every time I've ever mentioned or recommended books or cozy specifically to people, it's because of that. Like the characters
sure,
feel like home and friends, and especially if it's a group of people, you're invested in everybody who's working at the shop or part of the family or
that's right.
anything like that. So that's amazing, honestly. So
Yeah,
I'm
so it
super
continues,
excited for the
and
series.
it
Yeah.
and it gets a little and like there's some things that uh you know people sort of expect and they knew that this was going to come in terms of part of the romance, but then there's a bunch of other things that are going to happen that are not
Hmm.
expected. uh there is the continuation, the talk of religion, which was sort of in the first one.
Yeah.
Basically Bash uh gets engaged to his childhood sweetheart. They come back together, and she's Jewish, and she's been part
Hmm.
of the family for
Hmm.
years, like, coming to different things or what have you. So when they get engaged, it's this sort of shock that Quinn's parents and Bash's parent, yes, there's both their mother and father, have a really not a great reaction.
Right.
And
It's different now that you're engaged to her versus a friend
yeah,
coming over to the
well,
dinner.
that's what
Yeah.
happens a lot of times, right? Like saying, oh, you
Yeah.
can date someone, but don't like actually marry them, or if you do marry them, then let them come over, if it's something with religion, for example, obviously
Hmm.
other sorts of situations.
Hmm.
But I've been born and raised Jewish and have seen those examples. Most of the
Hmm.
time these days I don't see people sweating it over like they used to, but there
Okay.
was a time where it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And um there's been this sort of this is a way for me to include headier issues without it getting
Hmm.
too weighed down. So
Hmm.
I could speak to, sort of the rise of anti-Semitism. It was my way of touching on it,
Hmm.
addressing some of it in terms of, hey, maybe look a little deeper into these unconscious biases. Uh,
Hmm.
that's what I could speak to. I wasn't going to talk from a racial perspective because that wasn't
Hmm.
I think we need more people of color telling those stories,
Hmm.
I don't,
Hmm.
we don't need to do that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
experience, but to talk about it, I also sort of wanted to show where there's this conflict, it's deeply seated, but people can have these differences and try to work them out without it being sort of a scorched earth
Yeah.
result. Um,
Hmm.
I think sometimes, and I love the younger generation. I love Gen Z. I'm raising Gen Z, but they can be very black and white sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Okay.
they're complicated, they're layered.
Yeah.
And you've known people your whole life, as long as they're willing to go on the journey with you, hopefully, you're going to do that with them.
Hmm.
But so that was sort of my way of touching upon sort of what's going on without it
Hmm.
getting too heavy. Because I'm here to entertain. I don't need to see another dystopian. Don't need to see another like angst. Like we are in the cozy space because we're
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
to entertain and we are very low angst,
Right.
But it was a way to make them real, and it was a
Yeah.
way to add a little extra flavor, for lack of a better, you know,
Yeah.
thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
word. Anyway, did you?
No, I totally get it. And I think again, just a lot. I think that's what really makes the standout series stand out is because there are those layers. And I think it takes a lot of finesse to be able to take those heavier topics and then, like you said, like almost cozyfy them up, not necessarily make them frivolous, but write
Yeah,
it in a way to where it's a little bit more palatable and doesn't seem so jarring when you are in that cozy space because it's
yeah,
still an important issue, but not everything has to be handled in such a serious or heavy-handed way. So it's
yeah,
a balance, and I think it's obviously an important message to go along. So the fact that you can kind of weave it into the story,
yeah.
um,
It
yeah,
was,
that's
I mean,
great.
so it's funny because I just part of the publicity tour for the book. I wrote, so who I forgot who it was. Oh, I think it's Writer's Digest. They said write about like how can you talk about uncomfortable subjects and cozies because you know because it
Yeah.
And so I wrote a little piece and I gave sort of the top 3 things to look for, but so obviously this is on my mind right now, but,
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is important is that if you don't have any sort of otherness or conflict or what have you beyond just the mystery, I
Mhm.
or just sort of, having it sort of becomes more, and there's no slam to Hallmark movies because I love me a Hallmark, marathon,
Right?
right? But one of the things is, like, I can't do that for too long because it's a little too saccharine sweet. There's, like,
Yeah.
give me, like, the things that are like, don't give me a misunderstanding conflict. Don't give me something that could have been, in a 5-minute
Quick
conversation.
convo. Yep.
Yeah, I really I can't. And so,
Mhm. Mhm.
this I think that cozies are a little quirkier. I think we celebrate the weird and wonderful, and I think that we are getting better with otherness, diversity, what have you, but hopefully doing it in a way that's seamless. That's you don't want
Yeah.
to have to be like, oh, here's this character coming in. You just want it to be
Yeah. Right.
that's Mary or that's, whoever, coming in the
Mhm.
door, and they've got their stuff, they've got their background, they've got this, and hopefully it just sort of weaves into the story, so
Mhm.
that you can make it real without it being soapboxy.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And there's actually been, I would say, and not to say that it hasn't existed because there are
Oh, yeah.
thousands of cozies over dozens of years, but I do feel as if I've noticed a trend towards making cozies um incorporate those kind of heavier topics more. Like,
A little
obviously, in
bit.
addition to yours, I know, excuse me, just offhand, the Tita Rosie's Kitchen
Mhm.
series with arsenic and adobo, they obviously tackle
Oh,
the
good.
different races and stuff like that in the Filipino
Mm, so
community.
well.
There's another series, oh my gosh, I forget, but it's by Emmeline Duncan. It's like a coffee cart. Anyway, I know she
I don't
she
think I've read that
addresses
one.
like, yeah, homelessness because it's set in, I believe, Oregon,
Oh,
Portland
well,
to be specific. So
sure.
there's tackling kind of like the homelessness or maybe like drug problems of the communities and stuff like that. So obviously a heavier topic,
Right.
something that you wouldn't that I hadn't seen in cozies maybe like 10 years ago. But clearly there's space for those topics and people are obviously enjoying it because it adds a I don't want to say more meat, but just a different
Just
layer
different
that
just
wasn't
different
there.
grades, different layers.
Yeah.
I think that, you've got Gen X and millennials who are coming into the space, and
Hmm.
each generation is gonna have their own, not that they're gonna just be stuck in that, but
Right.
they're gonna not just want it to be, um they don't wanna have it totally whitewashed. They don't wanna have it
Hmm.
totally, without any, it just doesn't feel like life. So we wanna
Yeah.
have those touches of where we live or where we work or what we have
Right.
you, but, it is still through a rose-colored lens. I mean, but
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. That's
if we
okay.
wanted nitty-gritty, we would go over to crime noir or,
Right.
or some other thriller stuff, and I'd be, I'm,
Right.
like, looking at them like this when I watch it on Netflix,
Yeah. Right.
and sometimes it's too heavy for me. I mean, I'm
Same.
a therapist during the day. I hear, like, I work from home sometimes. My husband will walk by, he doesn't hear the people. He goes, "I hear one crying after the other, like, how do you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, no,
Right.
that's a good question." That means they
Yeah.
felt it. But, like, I my entertainment needs to be actually entertaining me. I can't,
Yep.
everyone was all going crazy for Euphoria. I'm sure it's wonderful. I couldn't watch. I just didn't even go to watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe at some other time in my life I can watch it because I hear it was amazing, but
Right.
just
You
can't
have
do
to
it.
be in that mindset, and
Right?
sometimes it's like we take on enough in our real world. I
That's
don't
right.
necessarily want my escapism to be as heavy hitting.
That's right.
That's not to say that it needs to be, like you said, all Hallmark all the time, but
Right, right.
there's a middle ground for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to switch subjects because, and I don't think maybe I asked you this, but that was
You can ask me
pre-COVID and that
anything
doesn't
again.
count. But I wanted to ask you about your life before as a romance author. Would you ever consider writing romance again, or you found your your people or where you belong better in the cozy
I'm
world?
a Gemini. I have many people. I have many tribes. Like,
Love it.
so, right? So I'm always gonna love my romance people. I would I ever write a romance again? I will always have stories with romantic elements
Yep.
with that will be part of the that drives the
Hmm.
story because that's being human.
Yeah.
So, whether I think I don't see that I would ever write as highly steamy or as erotic as I used to.
Okay.
Um, Not because I have anything against it. I
Hmm.
am, go let your freak flags fly, read whatever
Right, right,
love it.
right.
And I read it too, but I'm going to be brutally honest. I didn't think I did that very well. I think I
Okay.
do romance. I can do romance well. I think I do better when it's on the sweeter side versus the steamier side.
Gotcha.
That's just, and I think it's great to try everything. I think it's good to challenge yourself, but
Hmm.
also you got to be like, okay, yeah, I've written like 3, 4, 5 books in this category,
Hmm.
and it doesn't feel, it's just not gelling as well.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
but what was gelling was the relationships. What was gelling was the dialogue and the repartee
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
um, sort of the build. I love
Yeah.
the slow build. So yeah, I will always incorporate it. I'm at this point right now where because so my contracts are up at Crooked Lane, so they have to see if they come back and say, "Oh, we
Hmm.
want more from the series." I have
Okay.
no feeling about it, but just so
Yep.
that's part of it. But thinking about other things I want to write. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing, like I'm ADHD. I don't know if I could ever stick with one genre forever. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love, and I have so many of my fabulous cozy friends, like Misty Simon's a really good friend of mine. She's been writing cozies for like what 10, 15, 20 years. And
Uh-huh.
they just keep getting more and more fabulous. And she finds
Hmm.
other ways to do that. I think like if this series continues, I'll keep writing this, but then I might write something more suspenseful. I might write something, I'm actually trying for a TV treatment for something that's very different. So like,
Wow. Yeah.
and so that is the blessing and the curse of being ADHD is that
Wherever the wind blows you, essentially.
so I'm hoping, one of the things that, God bless Colleen Hoover for so many reasons, but former social worker who's,
Oh, I didn't
dominating
know that.
everything and everybody. But like there's been plenty of authors beforehand who've sort of switched around genres and wrote what they
Yeah.
wanted to write.
Right.
And I got to tell you, for a long time, at least when I was in the romance space, people were like, no, you need to stick to this. They need to know your voice. It needs to be the same
Yep.
thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't niche. I'm not
Yeah.
niche. And
Yeah.
and so then Colleen, who's been doing this for years, and then but everything just sort of,
Hmm.
uh, came to fruition. Like, she's got things on her back catalog who like literally look at the New York
Yeah.
Times bestseller. It's Colleen Hoover, and it's all different types of books.
Yeah.
And I really am grateful for that
Yeah.
because then it says to, it's not the readers, by the way, the readers.
No, it's a publishers.
Yeah, exactly. The readers are all like, "Oh, you want to do a fantasy
They
next?"
will follow
Yeah.
you to the ends of the earth.
If they like
Yep,
your
I
writing,
agree.
if they like you, they're going to do it. Absolutely. But for publishers, they get really freaked out if it's not
Yeah.
something inside a box. And yet,
Hmm.
the ones who hit lightning in the bottle are the ones who are not in a box.
Hmm.
I mean, I know that there's some on the list and out there who are they're formulaic, they do the same thing. They're hiring people to write, under them, and
Right.
they're doing that. There's a place for everybody.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's so many, if any, this is a golden age of television. This is a golden age of different stories finally getting to the surface.
Yeah.
Um, it should only get bigger and better. I don't see
Right.
that there's a limit. And I don't think that we have to, I don't want to limit myself creatively.
Hmm.
And uh, I don't think that readers want the same old thing all the time either. I think that
Hmm.
there's harder than that.
Yeah.
And I think that marketing is hard. I guess it's hard, when you haven't had a name. And there are times I'm like, oh, maybe I should write under my real name or do this. And I'm like, yeah, no one knows who that is. Like, no,
Right.
so, but I'm hoping that I think that at this point, obviously I'm kind of known for being more comedic and lighthearted. I don't usually write anything. I'm not gonna, I mean, there was at one point I was actually trying to write a thriller with a friend of mine who's like
Hmm.
very smart and it was really dark and disturbing and fabulous. But it didn't make me feel good to write it. Like it just
Yeah.
like I would go through something and then I'd feel like I needed an exorcism. Like, and I just sort of
Mm.
decided, like, doesn't mean I'm never going to put something angsty into the world, but I don't know. I didn't want to glorify evil either. Like, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, I love all kinds of stories. I just couldn't do it, you know?
Right.
So that's,
Right.
others do it really, and frankly, other people do it better. Let them do it. Right?
Right. You can just enjoy the fruit of their labor, whatever they
Exactly.
had to go
Exactly.
through behind the scenes to get the book out.
Well, exactly. So, you go where the muse takes you and you hope that you
Yeah.
have, listen, every writer wants an audience. If you're just writing for your own pleasure, then you're just doing that. And that's fine.
Mhm.
But of course, you want people to like what you write. Of course, you
Right.
want people to go on that ride with you. So I think, though, that hopefully all the powers that be are coming together and they're allowing uh, these really multidimensional, multifaceted people of all sorts of types, hopefully getting in there and getting to tell the stories that, keep them up at night.
Yeah.
It's, part of what you had asked before in terms of characters, you do sort of have this idea of where they're going to go.
Mhm.
I will say this because I didn't fully answer it because, again, vroom, squirrel ADHD. But for me, if I'm going along and all of a sudden I stop and I'm not, like, I have a block,
Mhm.
and everyone talks about writer's block. And so it's not fully writer's block. What it is that the characters I have decided, they've unionized in my head, and then they've said, no, we don't like where you're going with this. And so then I realize for whatever reason it's not working, it doesn't feel right. So then I'm like, okay. And I literally will close my eyes and, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then they say something and I'm like, oh, that's even better. I'm like, I know. And it's this whole thing. And
Right.
so, and that's what it is. So I think that for those who do want to write, when you're feeling the block, it's either just confidence, which is huge,
Mhm. Mhm.
then just do one sentence. Start with one sentence, one paragraph. Just start with something. Don't
Yeah.
think you have to sit there and write everything. And if it's not confidence, if you're feeling confident but it's just not rolling, I usually find that some part of your psyche is saying this is not going as well as you think it is.
Mhm.
Or some people will have that problem, they go to sleep and then the next day it's all solved, because their mind
Mhm.
is doing
Mhm.
that. I love that when that happens. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, we're all talking to the voices in our head in different ways. It's just what story these different aspects want to tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people have really good ones and are able to craft them and articulate it in a way to where the rest of us just eat
It
it
takes
up,
a long
honestly.
time. You know what? I'll if you really, whoever, if you want to write, you're going to figure it out and you're going to do it badly for a really long time. And if you can get over that ego part of it, I mean,
Mhm.
my first 3 or 4 romances, not that great. I mean, not awful, but
Right, right.
nothing to write home about. They're off the market because that publisher's out of business, not because of me, but just whatever. And that was my writing school.
Yeah.
And, and I think we've talked about this before, like, a lot of us women, or those assigned female at birth or who identify as
Mhm.
female, um, we think we have to have it perfect before we have anyone see it.
Mhm.
Versus there are plenty of mediocre white men out there who are just like, ah, let me just try
Yep.
that. That sounds pretty
Yep.
good. And they're very
Yep.
impressed with themselves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Really?
Yeah. I
So
remember hearing a quote, I'm probably going to butcher it, but one of my friends passed it along to me about carry yourself with the confidence
of
of
a
a
mediocre
mediocre white man. And it's like,
isn't that my favorite
you
one?
laugh, but then you really think about it and it's like, yeah, why can't I, So that's great
Or
advice.
the addendum to that could be share your unsolicited opinion as confidently as a mediocre white woman,
So you have two nuggets of advice that really just help you go
There
forth
you
and live your
go.
best life. But like, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It that is something that I can say that is, and as someone who is trying to evolve all the time, I'm like, no one has asked your opinion about this. Wait till they ask you. They're not going to ask you, then they don't need it. That was something I actually learned with my daughter. It was
Ah,
it started on the micro front and then I was able to make it macro because, like, and finally I'm like, sometimes, like, well, so now we have this rule, like, do you want a solution or do you need to vent? Because I'm here either way. And
Yeah.
that has changed the dynamic with my older daughter, especially
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was just coming in like old school, like, blah, blah,
Problem
blah.
solver, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing that in other areas of my life too. And then I'm like, oh, so this is what everyone finds so freaking annoying. I'm not doing the racist shit that's out there, other Karens are doing out there.
Right.
But that was something that I recognized. I'm like, yeah, not everyone has asked for your opinion. Like I would like hear people having a conversation. I would just start to talk. I would like, oh yeah, that happened to me. Like to me, everything was a big old share, like a sharing circle.
Right.
And
Right.
and then I'm like, let people ask. So
Well, the next time you can just butt in a conversation and be like, "Hey, sweetie, I couldn't help but hear what you had to
right.
say, and if you want some advice, I'm here for you, but just know
Yeah.
that I can relate."
Yeah, because most people are in the middle of their moments and they're
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
doing
They
their
just
own
have to
thing.
have their moment.
It's true. It's exactly true. So anyway, that's living and learning and growing and hopefully writing better and better books that people are having a good
Exactly.
time
Exactly. Well, that was some excellent advice, and I
with.
know that we are pretty much wrapped up. I really want to thank you, as
Oh, thank
always, for coming
you.
on and chatting with me. We could probably have done this for hours.
Well, I'm appreciating whatever time I get with you. You are a busy young mom. I remember it like yesterday. So
Oh,
I do. And so you have my utmost respect and, I appreciate your generosity of spirit and everything like that. If you want to do a giveaway, like I'm happy as long as it's within the United States, signed hard,
yeah.
a signed hard copy. Wait, I
Oh,
forget.
oh, let's see it.
I got
Let's
it
see
now.
it. Yes, please share the book with
Here
everyone.
we go. So
So beautiful.
yeah, this
Oh,
is
I
a fun
love
one
it.
with the little poison vial at the bottom,
I know, and now we know who the cat on the cover is, what their name
Cindy
is.
Crawford. I mean,
Cindy Clawford.
yeah, I
Oh,
love her.
amazing.
So let's give away a signed copy to one of your
Yes.
devotees because you have many. And as long as it's in
Oh,
the continental United States, I will send it to them. It'll probably take about a month till I get my rear in
of
gear. But
course.
and they
Yeah.
may, if they want to share stuff on social media, I also have these little cookies for an event. Just the cutest things ever.
Amazing.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
have you eaten one of those yet?
I'm sorry.
Or have you eaten one yet? Or are they just too beautiful?
Oh no, because it's sugar. Come on.
Okay.
I have to
Okay.
I have to
That's
say
my girl. Okay, great.
it's a little firmer. I'll be honest with you. You know what? It's a good tea or coffee biscuit kind of because it's sugar. It has a nice sugary taste, but it's a little
Mhm.
firmer. So it needs the dip.
Perfect for
You
dunking.
need to
Love
dip.
it.
But once you dip,
Yes.
it's perfect. So
Excellent.
send a little time to your people. It's my way of saying
Awesome.
thank you to them.
Okay, awesome. Well then, in that case, I will post an announcement or something on
Yeah.
my Instagram channel, and you guys can check the description below. Just to let everybody know, since we have been talking about the
Oh,
book, it
right.
comes out on March 21st.
Yep.
So be sure to look out for it on shelves and everything like that. Your favorite bookish retailer. And again, thank you so much, Harper,
Thank
for
you
joining
so
me. I really appreciate your
I
time.
appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, take care, guys.
Bye-bye.